Welcome, Jimmy. It's really good to have you, Jimmy Nevis.
Yeah, it's good to
You
be
don't
here.
give me this opportunity to chat with you.
No worries. I've been waiting. I've been waiting patiently for this moment.
I saw your billboard up at Century City. I was like,
Yeah.
I knew he was going to be big. I knew. It dawned on me. I mean, you come from Athlone.
Yeah.
And that brings its kind of inherent kind of challenges.
Yeah.
We don't think we deserve the success sometimes, and and there's challenges that come at us. We don't necessarily deal with the challenges properly as well. And I remember that you were part of a competition. I was a judge. And you didn't make it, but I always knew that you were going to be absolutely great.
Sure.
And I hoped that you didn't take what the judges had decided at the time seriously, that it didn't stand in the way of your musical career.
Yeah.
Clearly nothing stood in your way.
What a throwback! You've just you stabbed my brain. You've gotten something. I mean, I don't even know what I did yesterday, but you're bringing out just
It was the open mic competition.
It was open mic. It was a jazz kind of competition, and I think I was in my final year or maybe in my first year of varsity.
Yes.
Actually. And it was cool. There's different rounds, and you would come back. It happened at Grand West.
That's
and
correct.
It was
That's correct.
Yeah, but it was amazing.
That's about a decade ago, is it?
Yeah.
So you clearly you clearly knew that we knew nothing about music and singing. You knew that there was greatness in store for you.
Yeah, I think it's very common to have doubts, but I think that there is a time that you decide to grab onto those 3 seconds of courage, and whether it be just getting over yourself, getting over the challenges involved, whether it be dropping off your songs at radio stations or deciding to actually give it your all in the booth or whatever it is. I'd like to think that is kind of what has pushed me. It's that extra 5% of courage that just pushes you further and further and further in.
It's exactly that I seek to celebrate, because it's not easy. It's not as if the road is paved for you. You've got to carve out your own road.
Yeah.
And Athlone, just growing up there, you've got parents who are in the church, and there's a good thing and there's a bad thing. There's a conservativeness that comes with that as well. There are numerous. There are issues like identity, where you can't reconcile what you see in the face, and you can't come into your confidence, into yourself. And for some it takes a lifetime, and some people never achieve that.
Absolutely. I think for me, it's a lot of my music is very much art imitating life, and I always consider my albums to be I'd like to be considered as an albums artist, because I do put a lot of effort into the albums, sometimes more so than the singles.
You're a dying breed, Jimmy.
Yeah, but for me, it's kind of like my free therapy sessions. I feel like my albums are like a gateway into really kind of updating and manifesting my life. And I think especially this album, that's coming out this weekend, it's called Things We Don't Talk About. And I really wanted to almost put myself forcibly in the position where I'd have to kind of really be a part of a conversation that would make me feel uncomfortable, be a part of something that would inspire others, and also kind of continue a conversation that maybe, hasn't always been spoken about. So I think, whether it be on topics of mental health or sexuality or whatever it is, I think that there's so much to really unpack, especially for who I am right now in my life, and I just want to be as authentic and as open as possible.
When you talk about issues like mental health and sexuality, are these things that you can reconcile and rationalize by yourself, or do you need to? Is there some liberation, some catharsis that comes with putting it out there in the public?
Again, I will say my music is how I channel everything. And so for me,
so you're naked there.
It's part of my artistry. And I think my artistry would always come first. And I think even there's always a decision that you kind of make, as an artist, of how much you want to share and how much you want to kind of put yourself out there. And just because, I'm talking about things doesn't mean that there aren't boundaries. But I think that there's definitely, I I see the value in creating space.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of almost, it's been like a new added purpose to my life. And the way that I can create space is through sharing and through creating safe spaces. So by being vulnerable, I feel like I can attract, even in my shows or for those who listen to my music, they can kind of feel some type of safe space in whatever it may be, So I don't know. I think as I've gotten older, there's so many amazing other artists coming through the pipeline. There's just, it's amazing. I mean, to be doing this 10 years down the line, I think creating space has become a very important part of what I do.
You're talking about being authentic, telling your story, expressing yourself through art, and ultimately music is expression, and it needs to come from the deepest, darkest recesses of the soul. Would you say that the kind of art that you create is commensurate with the depths that you can go to?
Absolutely. I always used to say that like my live shows are like confessionals, because I always end up oversharing or talking too much or and I think the studio has kind of been a bit of that as well for me. But I think some of these songs, I kind of wrote them more as like diary entries, and I would laugh because some of it is really funny, like it's supposed to be a little quirky, a little funny.
Do they touch on sexual health and or sexuality and mental health?
Definitely. Okay. I think more than that, there's a lot of different topics on the album, and I think that beyond all of that, it's also just about, in the same breath, I want to say, with all of such serious topics, I think art allows us to not take it as seriously.
Absolutely.
So for me, that's also what this
and
music is about.
And for society to reconcile it a little differently.
100%. I mean, we put out the song called FBA, which stands for like F Boys Anonymous, and I mean, it's hilarious. If you haven't heard it, go check out my social media. You'll see all about it over there. But it's hilarious. It's one of the funniest, greatest moments of my career, and I absolutely love it. Sonically, I mean, there's even like an ode to like a choir at the end.
I think you're distinguished, and I want to go back that you distinguish between an album artist and an EP artist.
Yeah.
Just what is the difference there? You are a fountain of creativity. You're saying it's spewing forth. And you just kind of packaging it all the time.
I grew up in a time of CDs and albums. And so that's how I took music in. I would buy the album, and that's what I was listening to until I knew everything back to front. I would read the album cases. I carried it in my bag. I had a flip file full of them. So for me, like, I respect the detail of an album and what it tells us about an artist.
Because an album is a story, is it not?
It's a story, but it's an update. You know what I mean? It's
a season?
It's a conversation. It's a season. And you know what? Like, the next album could be completely different. And it could be something, that is for a different time and a different generation or whatever. And so living fully in the season and being able to capture that, I think, is something that shouldn't be overlooked, especially.
But you're also making peace with that season, allowing a new season.
No, 100%, man. I'm not here to do the same things I've done before. Like,
sure.
I'm very grateful for everything I've done. And, I look at a song like 7764. It was probably one of the biggest eye-openers for me, because that song was written with, such... I wrote it as for my own personal, experience. But the way, people would come to me and the things that song kind of did for my career, the stories I got told, that song was in textbooks, like there's just so many layers to conversations that can come from music. And I think that era taught me that. And so I'm leaning more into this, where I get to create more conversation, and I don't mind being at the center of it. It's really not about me at the end of the day. So
7764, did it come like as one inspired moment or multiple inspired moments? Did you understand it completely and instinctively just in one go?
So I was in my final year of varsity, and I have a degree in sociology, and so I was doing
that explains that, yeah.
So I was doing a project that was about teenage fathers in the Cape Flats. And throughout my research, I was there like quite a bit, like actually intentionally walking there and being there and speaking to people. And I just fell in love all over again. It was like this beautiful mix of nostalgia and, even something so joyous, but also a little bit sad. And I kind of liked that. It was very melancholy to just kind of look at this place that I grew up in and see it for what it really is. And I think that's what I tried to capture with that song, is seeing it for what it really is.
And if you dig, there's a depth to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Just given the name of this new album that you're launching on Sunday, I sense a boldness, maybe a braveness about it as well.
No, 100%. You know, I think for me, the word that has stood out for me the most over the past year would be integrity. And I think that for me, this album is an album of integrity, you know, because for me as an artist, I've kind of like taken a risk in putting out certain content and saying certain things, you know, because I believe that it's true and that it's right and that it's pure, you know. And so for me, I'm very happy about that. If anything, I feel so proud to be an artist of integrity and that I stand for something and I'm not scared to put it out there in this way.
But that integrity has got nothing to do with anyone else. It's about being true to yourself.
Absolutely. This is, you know, what's crazy is like, you know, sure, people hear this and I hope it does amazing things and whatever. But at one point in time, this album was for me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so there are many layers to the releasing of an album, you know, in terms of studio to PR to performance, blah blah blah. But I think there's, you know, there was a very special time with myself in making this album, and for the people who were on this album, I mean, Amin Haran, Shani J, you know, people that there's some people I haven't worked with before. We have live horns on here. We have backing vocalists, you know, usually I do my own backing vocals. So sonically even, it's just been a great experience to kind of put this out. We have Kyan Cruz and Hannah, who's also featured on this album. And it's just been really cool to kind of not limit myself.
And you own the process. You own that entire kind of creative value chain.
Absolutely. And you know, it's so cool because it's I think anyone who's taken a risk in anything, you know, knows that the joy that comes with truly following through with something from start to finish.
And that's lyrics, music.
It's all of it,
everything.
You know. I mean,
I wanted to know, how do you sell an album?
Yeah. Listen, that's the big question these days. Eh? Like, you know, I think you know, there's the technical way in which I can explain to you, but I think overall it takes pure ownership. I don't think it's about, you know, the record labels and all these people and templates and blah blah blah. Yeah. I think you got to be able to have a very good connection with fans and with people. For me, I've decided I'm like this I call this album process. We've been calling it just like an open book kind of like research project, because we've been trying out different things. We've did a lot of this album digitally so far, and it's been amazing. It's been great reward, but it's been cool to kind of just figure it out. And then on top of that, we've also just been doing cool stuff. I mean, we launched AO in the sky, 33,000 feet, you know, on a Fly Safair flight. We had a Jimmy Nevis ice cream truck the other day, you know, in Athlone and here in Camps Bay and Sea Point. So we've also just been having fun with it, and I think, you know, being able to keep things fresh and alive is also a big part.
I wanted to ask, and I'm going to come there soon about your performances coming Sunday. You know, what you can't be selling your music for 99 cents on iTunes.
Listen, I mean, it's for me, that's one part of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's not much you can really do about streams and that. But I think
can't you own that stream?
It's a difficult
exclusively,
thing.
And therefore put a value on that creativity, not have it forced on you.
You can own it by being creative and having different brands and other people come on board and working along with them. But honestly, the music industry, I mean, I started 10 years ago and it's probably changed radically like 4 times, you know what I mean? So I was doing in-store music signings when I started, and now it's like, you know, it went to streaming, and now it's actually more TikTok than it is even streaming. So there's so many things to learn all the time, and I think for me, one thing that I've decided with my team and with everyone, I said, we're going to kind of slow this down just a little bit, because it takes time to really soak in an album. And I'm going to ask people to be respectful, you know. As an artist, I want to ask my fans and people who hear this album to be kind and to, you know, to be generous with your time and listen to it from start to finish.
And dig.
Yeah, and dig and Google if you don't understand
Jimmy
something.
Is deep. Dig. Go and find it. Go and find it. Somebody says, what a lovely interview with Jimmy and the value of integrity. I once left a job because they questioned mine, and often that's all one has, integrity. I agree with Jenny on that one.
Absolutely. I think integrity is kind of a new concept for me in this way. I think I've never really felt the need to really stand out too much, you know what I mean? Everything's kind of been quite streamlined.
Yeah.
But I think with this, it's been cool because I also realize what I want to represent and what I want to do on stage. And, you know, somebody came to me the other day and they were like, you know, you're a role model for kids and stuff. And I was like, I'm trying to be my own role model.
You're getting old and your fans are getting old.
100%, you know, like I'm here to be my own role model. I talk to my friends and stuff. We all have the same issues and things. And this album is for them, you know, so.
Yeah. And I think there's a universality about your stuff. I don't think that it's locked necessarily into a generational perspective either.
No. I've always encouraged, you know, well, I've seen it at my shows. They'll be like from 6 years old to 60.
And the auntie from Athlone.
No, 100%. Listen, the aunties are always there for me. They'll always be there. But I think that
you're their boy, Jimmy Nevis.
But I think there is, you know, especially when it comes to the album stuff, I think it is about lyrics and it's about...
And it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a gift there, and I'm glad you're living it out to the extent that you are, that this South Africa has given you that opportunity too.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to be able to get a bit of a snapshot of what that album's all about this coming Sunday, I believe.
100%. It's the first performance for the album publicly. And it's cool. I have like a violinist joining. We have backing vocalists. I feel like this year I'm really trying to live up to all my dream performances that I've always wanted to do.
You've been bold. You've been very bold. So this coming Sunday, is it going to be just the new stuff, or is there going to
No, it's a mix of new and old. There's new arrangements.
So you're going to induct us?
Yeah, no, it's basically a reintroduction. It's like allow me to reintroduce myself.
Okay.
But, you know, I love my old music. We're obviously going to definitely put that in there. But it's nice that we can touch on some new stuff. And more than that, I think there's just going to be a lot of soul, I think, to this event and to this performance.
So it's a new you, Jimmy?
I mean, I don't know. I just think it's an update. That's how I see it.
So what's the update? What's the update in a nutshell?
Well, you're going to have to come to the show to find out. Baxter Theatre outdoor sunset concert happening this coming Sunday. Get your tickets at webtickets.co.za. Bring your friends and family and, you know, let's talk about the things we don't want to talk about.
I'm so looking forward to it. I really am. Jimmy, it's been lekker to touch base and to have a different conversation.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch this updated Jimmy with a keen interest. Jimmy Nevis, my guest today, that's where he's performing. You want to be there as we, of course, welcome him and us into an updated Jimmy world.